The morning sun hit the lake at exactly 6:45, turning the water into liquid gold. I stood on my dock with a cup of coffee, watching the light ripple across the surface. This was why I'd bought the house 2 years ago, not the square footage or the updated kitchen, but this moment, this silence, the feeling of standing somewhere that answered to no one but me. My Boston whaler sat moored at the end of the 40-foot dock, white hull gleaming against the teak planks. The wood was expensive, required maintenance, but I didn't mind. 15 years as a financial consultant had taught me that some things were worth the upkeep. When I'd bought the place, I'd spent 3 days with a real estate attorney going through every line of the deed. The marina lot designated M7 was mine, recorded in 1998 outside HOA control. 3 homes in Lakeside Estates had these rights. I'd made sure mine was airtight before I signed anything. Most people didn't bother with that level of detail. I'd seen too many clients lose money because they didn't read the fine print, so I kept copies everywhere: filing cabinet, cloud storage, glove box. The paranoia of someone who'd watched other people get burned. Lakeside Estates was a decent community. 47 homes arranged around a private lake, oak trees shading the streets, speed bumps slowing traffic to a crawl. The HOA kept things tidy: grass mowed, street lights working, fees at $450 a month. Most of the rules made sense: paint colors from a list, fence heights under 6 feet, quiet hours after 10. I never fought them because they didn't touch what I actually cared about. 2 months after I moved in, I met Dorothy Whitmore at a neighborhood gathering. 71, former HOA president, sharp enough to quote property statutes from memory. We ended up talking for an hour. Before she left, she'd pulled me aside. "Your deed's solid," she'd said, stirring her coffee like she was discussing the weather, "but keep it handy. Power gets uncomfortable when it finds boundaries it can't cross." I'd asked what she meant. She just smiled and walked away. At the time, I'd thought she was being dramatic. Now, I kept that deed in 4 different places. The current HOA president was Vivian Strickland, 52, always dressed in grays and tans that made her look like she was perpetually presiding over something. She'd been in office for 7 years across 3 terms. I'd only attended a handful of meetings, but I'd watched her work. Every agenda item timed to the minute, every vote counted before it was called. She wielded Robert's Rules of Order like a gavel. Efficient, I'd give her that, but there was something underneath. The way she'd pause after winning a dispute, savoring it half a second too long. Last month, a resident had planted roses without approval. Vivian had issued a violation notice within 2 days, $500 fine or removal. The homeowner had argued that roses weren't prohibited. Vivian had leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled, and cited an architectural guideline from 2007 about visual harmony and board discretion. The roses came out. She had smiled after the vote, not triumphant, just satisfied, like she'd proven a point only she understood. I'd stayed quiet. My dock wasn't her business, so I had no reason to make myself a target. But 3 weeks ago, she'd stopped while I was washing the boat. She'd stood there, hands loose at her sides, head tilted slightly as she surveyed the setup. "Nice boat, Lawson," she'd said, voice warm but eyes calculating. "Must be something having all this space just for yourself." I'd thanked her and kept scrubbing. She'd lingered another 30 seconds, then walked off without another word. It felt like an appraisal. This past Tuesday, during the monthly meeting, someone asked about lake access for the community picnic. Vivian had tapped her pen against her clipboard. "We have several waterfront assets that could be better utilized for community benefit," she'd said. No names, but I'd felt the room's attention shift toward me. I'd kept my expression neutral. The meeting had moved on. Dorothy, sitting 2 rows back, had leaned forward and whispered, "Careful now." I nodded. Yesterday afternoon, I saw Vivian's son near the lake path with 3 friends. Garrett Strickland was 23, still living at home, driving a truck his mother co-signed. He had the swagger of someone who'd never faced real consequences. They'd been drinking, tossing cans into the grass. One of them had pointed at my dock. Garrett had said something I couldn't hear. They'd all laughed. I'd made a mental note and gone inside. This morning, I'd planned to take the boat out, clear skis, light wind, perfect for bass fishing. I'd loaded my gear and was wiping down the seats when I heard footsteps. Multiple sets, heavy, casual, approaching fast. I straightened up and turned. 5 people, Vivian in front, Garrett behind her. 3 men I didn't recognize, mid-30s, polo shirts, the kind of guys who smiled too much. Lawson, Vivian's voice was bright, artificially cheerful. We need a favor. Could we borrow your boat, just an hour or two? She gestured to the men. These gentlemen are from First Regional Bank. They're considering a grant for our community fund. A quick lake tour would really help seal the deal. One of the bankers grinned. Beautiful setup you've got here. We take good care of it. I looked at her, then at Garrett, then at the strangers already eyeing my boat like it was theirs. I'm taking it out this morning, I said, polite, clear, the kind of no that doesn't bend. Vivian's smile tightened at the edges. Come on, it's for the community. You can fish any time. One of the men reached for the railing, foot lifting toward the deck. Stop. My voice was calm but cold. He froze. I pulled my phone from my pocket. This marina is private property, not part of the HOA. You don't have permission to be here. Garrett snorted. Dude, my mom runs this place. She gave permission. I kept my phone raised. If you're not off this dock in 30 seconds, I'm calling the police for trespassing. The bankers exchanged glances. One muttered to Vivian, maybe we should just. She cut him off, face flushing. We have rights here. This community works because people cooperate. Her voice had gone sharp, the mask cracking. I started dialing. 20 seconds. The men backed off, hands up. Garrett glared but followed. Vivian stood frozen for another beat, breathing hard before spinning and marching away. The group trailed after her. I sat down on the dock, pulse steady, and pulled up my deed on my phone. Lot M7, exclusive use, perpetual easement. I took a screenshot, saved it to a new folder labeled HOA, and called Dorothy. It's starting, I said. She sighed, long and knowing. Yeah, it usually does, keep everything documented. I hung up and looked out at the water. The gold light was gone. The lake looked gray now, like a storm was rolling in. I didn't go fishing that day. Instead, I sat in my office and reviewed the security camera footage. I'd installed the system 6 months ago, 2 cameras covering the dock from different angles, motion-activated cloud backup. The manufacturer had advertised it as protection against theft. I'd bought it because I liked having records, numbers, timestamps, proof. That's how you won arguments in my line of work. Show the data, let it speak for itself. The footage was clean. Vivian approaches with her entourage at 10:28. Her voice is clear enough to catch most of the conversation. The banker reaching for my boat, my warning, their retreat. I saved 3 copies to separate drives and labeled the file with the date. Then I pulled up my HOA covenants and restrictions document, the 60-page PDF I'd read twice before closing on the house. I went straight to Section 7, subsection C, private marina lots excluded from common area governance. I highlighted the text, screenshotted it, and added it to the same folder. Preparation wasn't paranoia, it was survival. By evening, I'd almost convinced myself the morning's confrontation would blow over. Vivian had been embarrassed in front of her banker friends. She'd cool off, move on, find someone else to bother. I was wrong. Sunday afternoon, I found an envelope in my mailbox. Official HOA letterhead, my name and address printed in serif font. I opened it standing in my driveway. The letter was brief: violation notice number 2847, alleged offense, failure to cooperate with community initiatives, fine, $500, due date, 14 days. At the bottom, Vivian's signature, sharp and angular, like her handwriting was making a point. I read it 3 times. There was no clause in the covenants about cooperation, nothing that required homeowners to loan personal property for HOA events. I went inside, pulled up the full document on my laptop, and ran a keyword search. Cooperation appeared twice, once in the preamble about neighborly conduct, once in Section 12 about snow removal from shared driveways. Neither had anything to do with boats or private marinas. I drafted an email to the HOA board, polite, factual, citing the specific sections that made the violation notice invalid. I attached a copy of my deed and the relevant covenant pages. I sent it at 4:32 with a red receipt request. The automated reply came back immediately. Your message has been received. A board member will respond within 5 business days. I didn't expect a response in 5 days. I didn't expect one at all. Monday morning, I woke up to 17 notifications on my phone, all from the Lakeside Estates community group online. I joined it when I moved in, mostly to stay informed about trash pickup schedule changes and the occasional lost dog post. It had 89 members, quiet, boring, exactly what a neighborhood group should be. But overnight, it came alive. Vivian had posted at 11:47, "Some neighbors don't understand what community means. When the HOA asks for help with important initiatives, cooperation isn't optional. It's what makes Lakeside Estates special. Refusing to contribute hurts everyone." The post had 32 comments, most of them supportive. "If you don't like the rules, move somewhere else. HOA dues pay for services. We all need to pitch in." A few were more measured, but what if it's private property? Don't we have rights too? Those comments had been met with replies about selfishness and entitlement. Dorothy had commented at 6:15, "Property ownership is a legal matter, not a moral one. The deed determines jurisdiction, not community opinion." Her comment had been deleted by 8. I took screenshots of everything before it could disappear further. Then I scrolled through the thread, noting names, who supported Vivian, who questioned her, who stayed silent. It was a map of the battlefield, and I was studying the terrain. I didn't reply. Engaging would only feed the performance. Vivian wanted a public argument she could control. I wasn't going to give her one. Instead, I sent Dorothy a private message. "They deleted your comment." She replied within minutes, "They'll delete anything that contradicts the narrative. Document everything. You'll need it later." Tuesday brought another letter. Violation notice number 2851. The boat does not have an HOA registration sticker. Fine, $750. I stared at it for a full minute. There was no such thing as an HOA registration sticker for private boats. I'd checked twice. The lake access rules applied to the community launch ramp, not private marinas. But here was the notice, printed on official paper, Vivian's signature at the bottom, like it made the rule real. I called the number listed for HOA inquiries. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I left a message, calm, professional, requesting clarification on the sticker requirement and citing the sections of the covenants that exempted private property. No call back. I sent a follow-up email to the full board, copying my real estate attorney on it. I kept the language neutral but made my position clear. These fines have no legal basis. I expect them to be rescinded within 7 days. The only response came from Miles Garrett, the board treasurer. He sent a private email, not replying to the group thread. "Lawson, I want you to know I didn't vote for those notices. Vivian pushed them through without full board discussion. I'm sorry, I don't have the votes to overturn her." I read it twice, then archived it. Miles was decent but powerless. That told me everything about how Vivian ran things. Wednesday afternoon, I was loading groceries into my car when I saw her. She was walking across the parking area near the clubhouse, headed toward her silver sedan. I could have avoided her, gotten in my car, driven off, kept my head down, but I was tired of being reactive. I closed my trunk and walked over. "Vivian." She stopped, turned, face neutral. Up close, she looked more tired than I'd expected. Fine lines around her eyes, jaw tight, like she was clenching her teeth. "Lawson," her tone was cool, professional. I kept my hands loose at my sides, posture open, non-threatening. "I need you to withdraw the 2 violation notices. They don't have any basis in the covenants." She tilted her head slightly. "The board voted. The decision is final." "I have a copy of the meeting minutes," I said. "Those votes aren't recorded." Her expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. "Are you calling me a liar?" I shook my head. "I'm saying the process wasn't followed. You know it wasn't. Withdraw the notices and we can move on." She took a step closer, not aggressive, just closing the distance. "You're new here, so maybe you don't understand how this works. The HOA maintains order. We can't have people thinking they're above the rules." "I'm not above the rules," I said. "The marina isn't covered by them. That's not my opinion. It's in the deed." Vivian's smile was thin, more of a grimace. You really want to fight this? Do you know how much it costs to hire a lawyer? And even if you win, you'll still have to live here with all of us. Think about that. It wasn't a threat exactly, just a reminder of how power worked in small communities. Make yourself a problem, and the problems multiply. I met her eyes. I've already thought about it. She studied me for a moment, then shrugged. Your choice. She started to walk away, then paused and looked back. Garrett and his friends really like your doc, by the way. They talk about it all the time. Nice spot for hanging out. She said it casually, like she was making small talk, but the message was clear. I watched her get in her car and drive off. I stood there in the parking lot, groceries getting warm in my trunk, and pulled out my phone. I opened the camera app, checked the settings, made sure the motion alerts were set to maximum sensitivity. Then I called my security company and upgraded to the premium monitoring package, 24/7 recording, no gaps. If Garrett and his friends decided to visit, I'd have every second on file. I wasn't going to wait for the next move. I was going to be ready for it. The emails began Thursday morning and didn't stop, 15 by noon, 23 by evening, all from Vivian, each one claiming I'd broken a rule that didn't exist. My boat apparently disrupted the aesthetic line of the waterfront. The sound of water at night was a noise violation. The cabin lights were light pollution. Every message was copied to the board and random neighbors, quoting phantom sections of the covenants. I answered each message calmly, attaching screenshots of real clauses, time-stamped photos showing the boat unmoved for months, decibel readings proving silence. I sent my deed again, adding every proof she ignored. It became a ritual of endurance, not argument. I knew the purpose. She was crafting a record meant to paint me as difficult, bureaucratic pressure disguised as order. The fines escalated next, 500, then 750, then 1,000. The claims grew stranger, a mandatory dock inspection that no one scheduled, fees for maintenance I'd done myself, $3,000 in total fiction, printed on official paper. Each page was proof of how far she'd go. I printed everything, emails, notices, replies, and filed them by date in a thick binder, each page marked with tabs, evidence, pattern of harassment. Beneath those, a clean timeline took shape, dates, incidents, fines, all pointing to one truth. This was never about order, it was about control. By Friday, the neighborhood group had turned into a trial by comment. Vivian posted twice a day, never nomming me but always implying. Community depends on cooperation, she'd write, and her loyal crowd filled the thread before dawn. She posted late, so her narrative always went unchallenged. The replies were crueler than her posts. One neighbor accused me of setting a bad example. Another blamed people like me for higher fees. Someone else said property rights were selfishness in disguise. Dorothy's calm rebuttal, reminding them that deeds define law, not opinion, was gone within minutes. I quit the gym, quit the evening walks. The waves stopped. Conversations died mid-sentence. The couple who'd once invited me to dinner now looked away when I passed. Isolation, I realized, wasn't accidental. It was strategy. Break the target, make surrender feel rational. On Saturday, I found the mailbox. Someone had spray-painted it during the night, red letters, sloppy but readable, selfish. I stood there staring at it for a minute, then pulled out my phone and took pictures from 4 angles. The paint was still tacky, fresh. I checked my front door camera footage, but the mailbox was just out of frame, blocked by the oak tree in my yard. Convenient. I filed a police report. The officer who responded was professional but not optimistic. Probably kids, he'd said. No witnesses, no cameras, hard to prove anything. I'd asked about filing for increased patrols. He'd written it down, but I could tell it wasn't a priority. Vandalized mailbox in a nice neighborhood, low-level property crime. It would go in a drawer and stay there. I spent the rest of Saturday installing 2 more cameras, one covering the mailbox and front entrance, another angled toward the street to catch anyone approaching. I upgraded to a system with facial recognition and license plate reading. Expensive, but I'd learned a long time ago that documentation was cheaper than litigation. The cameras went live at 4. Motion alerts set to ping my phone every time something moved within 20 feet of my property line. That evening, Dorothy called. "How are you holding up?" I'd been organizing my evidence binder, cross-referencing emails with covenant violations. "I'm fine," I said. She was quiet for a moment. "You know this doesn't stop unless you make it stop, right?" I did know. I'd seen the pattern before in corporate disputes. The aggressor keeps escalating until the target either submits or fights back publicly. There was no middle ground. "Tell me about Garrett," I said. Dorothy sighed. "What do you want to know?" I leaned back in my chair, watching my new camera feed on the laptop screen. Vivian threatened me with him, not directly, but the message was clear. He's done this before, hasn't he? Another pause. Last year, a homeowner challenged Vivian on a tree removal policy. 2 weeks later, his mailbox got smashed. The month after that, someone keyed his truck. He moved out 6 months ago. "And you think it was Garrett?" I asked. "I know it was," she said, "but I couldn't prove it. No cameras back then, no witnesses willing to talk. Vivian's been here 7 years. She knows how to make problems go away." I thanked her and hung up. Then I opened a new document on my computer and titled it Incident Log. I started with today's vandalism, then worked backward, every email, every fine, every online post. I added timestamps, screenshots, witnesses when available. The file grew to 11 pages before I stopped. Monday morning brought the emergency HOA meeting announcement, special session to discuss community standards and member conduct. Tuesday night, 7, clubhouse, attendance strongly encouraged. I read it twice. Vivian was forcing a public confrontation. She wanted to isolate me in front of the neighborhood, get people on record supporting her position. It was a power play, but power plays only worked when the other side didn't see them coming. I sent an RSVP confirming my attendance. Then I spent the rest of the day preparing. I printed my deed in large format. I created a presentation with photos, emails, and covenant excerpts. I rehearsed what I'd say, keeping it factual and calm. No emotion, no accusations, just documentation. I knew Vivian would control the room. She'd have her votes lined up before the meeting started. But I wasn't going there to win a vote. I was going to create a record, something I could point to later when this went further. Tuesday evening, I drove to the clubhouse 15 minutes early. The parking lot was already half full. I sat in my car, reviewing my notes one last time. My phone buzzed. "Dorothy, remember, you're not trying to change minds tonight. You're showing them you won't be intimidated." I typed back a thumbs up and got out. The sun was setting over the lake, casting long shadows across the pavement. Inside the clubhouse, I could hear voices, a lot of them. I took a breath, grabbed my folder, and walked in. I didn't go to the meeting Tuesday night. Instead, I stayed home and did something I should have done weeks ago. I reviewed every frame of security footage from the past 6 months. Not just the recent incidents, everything. I started at the beginning when I'd first installed the cameras and worked forward chronologically. Most of it was boring: cars passing, neighbors walking dogs, delivery trucks, but I wasn't looking for excitement. I was looking for patterns. At 2:17 on a night 3 weeks after the police had removed Garrett from my dock, the pattern appeared. 3 figures approaching my marina. The motion-activated lights kicked on, and for 5 clear seconds I had faces. Garrett and 2 friends. One carried something long and metal. They got within 10 feet of my boat before Garrett stopped, pointed at the camera, and they retreated. The audio caught his voice: "Not here, camera." They disappeared toward the parking area. I kept watching. 4 minutes later, different camera angle. Same 3 figures near the community lot. One approached a silver Honda Civic parked under a street light. I zoomed in. The car belonged to the treasurer. I'd seen him drive it dozens of times. The figure with the metal object, a tire iron, swung it into the side mirror. Glass exploded. Another swing. The mirror broke off completely. Garrett stood watch while the third friend pulled out spray paint and tagged the driver's door. Not words this time, just a crude symbol, quick and sloppy. They moved to another house. 90 seconds of footage showed them spray painting a garage door. The audio was faint but clear enough. Mom said this one complained about the noise. That was Garrett's voice, definitive, time-stamped, undeniable. I saved the files, created backups, labeled them methodically. Then I kept searching. I found 2 more incidents, both from months ago, before my conflict with Vivian had started. Property damage targeting homeowners I didn't know. But when I cross-referenced the addresses with old community group posts, the pattern crystallized. Every victim had questioned Vivian in a public meeting or online. Every attack happened within 2 weeks of their challenge. This wasn't random vandalism, it was enforcement. At midnight, I called the treasurer. He answered on the 3rd ring, voice thick with sleep. Lawson, what's wrong? I kept it brief. I need you to come over tomorrow morning, early. I have something you need to see. He hesitated. Is this about Vivian? I said yes. He was quiet for 5 seconds. 7, I'll be there. He arrived at 6:55, still in yesterday's shirt, looking like he hadn't slept. I had coffee ready and my laptop set up in the living room. Before I show you this, I said, I need to know you're ready to see it, because once you do, you can't unknow it. He sat down heavily. Show me. I played the footage, his car, the mirror, the spray paint. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. That's Garrett, he said, not a question, a statement. I nodded, and 2 friends, I have their faces on other cameras. I can identify them. I showed him the second incident, the garage door. Garrett's voice on the audio. Mom said this one complained. The treasurer put his head in his hands. How long has this been happening? I pulled up my timeline, at least 8 months that I can prove, probably longer. He looked at me, eyes hollow. Why didn't you go to the police? I had gone to the police twice. They can't do much with hooded figures and grainy footage, but this is different. Clear faces, clear audio, clear motive. This is prosecutable. He stood up, paced to the window, stared out at the lake. Vivian doesn't know, does she, about what he's doing? I thought about that. She knows something. The audio proves she's directing targets. Whether she knows the methods, I can't say, but she's not innocent. He turned back. What do you want from me? The truth, I said. When this goes public, people will need to hear from someone who was inside, someone who saw how she operated. I need you to be willing to tell what you know. He was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. I abstained from voting because she threatened me, not directly, just mentioned how my landscaping was looking a little overgrown, how violations could pile up fast if someone wasn't careful. I was a coward. You're not a coward, I said. You're scared, there's a difference, but now you have a choice. He looked at the frozen frame on my screen, Garrett's face clearly visible, tire iron in hand. What's your plan? I told him. His eyes widened. That's bold. I nodded. It has to be. Anything less and she'll spin it. He asked if I had enough signatures. I did. 12 homeowners, more than the required 20%. Then I'm in, he said, whatever you need. After he left, I made another call, my attorney. I explained what I'd found and asked if the footage was admissible. He said yes, but recommended I turn it over to the police immediately to establish a chain of custody. I called the non-emergency line and requested Officer Blackwell specifically. She arrived an hour later. I showed her everything. She watched in silence, taking notes, asking for copies. This is solid, she said. Multiple counts of criminal mischief, conspiracy, possibly witness intimidation, depending on what else you have. How long until charges? I asked. She shrugged. Depends on the district attorney's office. Could be days, could be weeks, but this won't go away. She paused at the door. You know this is going to blow up your neighborhood, right? I knew. That was the point. I didn't go to the meeting Tuesday night. Instead, I stayed home and did something I should have done weeks ago. I reviewed every frame of security footage from the past 6 months. Not just the recent incidents, everything. I started at the beginning when I'd first installed the cameras and worked forward chronologically. Most of it was boring, cars passing, neighbors walking dogs, delivery trucks, but I wasn't looking for excitement. I was looking for patterns. At 2:17 on a night 3 weeks after the police had removed Garrett from my dock, the pattern appeared. 3 figures approaching my marina. The motion-activated lights kicked on, and for 5 clear seconds I had faces. Garrett and 2 friends, one carried something long and metal. They got within 10 feet of my boat before Garrett stopped, pointed at the camera, and they retreated. The audio caught his voice, "Not here, camera." They disappeared toward the parking area. I kept watching. 4 minutes later, different camera angle, same 3 figures near the community lot. One approached a silver Honda Civic parked under a street light. I zoomed in. The car belonged to the treasurer. I'd seen him drive it dozens of times. The figure with the metal object, a tire iron, swung it into the side mirror. Glass exploded. Another swing. The mirror broke off completely. Garrett stood watch while the third friend pulled out spray paint and tagged the driver's door. Not words this time, just a crude symbol, quick and sloppy. They moved to another house. 90 seconds of footage showed them spray painting a garage door. The audio was faint but clear enough. Mom said this one complained about the noise. That was Garrett's voice, definitive, time-stamped, undeniable. I saved the files, created backups, labeled them methodically. Then I kept searching. I found 2 more incidents, both from months ago, before my conflict with Vivian had started. Property damage targeting homeowners I didn't know. But when I cross-referenced the addresses with old community group posts, the pattern crystallized. Every victim had questioned Vivian in a public meeting or online. Every attack happened within 2 weeks of their challenge. This wasn't random vandalism, it was enforcement. At midnight I called the treasurer. He answered on the 3rd ring, voice thick with sleep. "Lawson, what's wrong?" I kept it brief. "I need you to come over tomorrow morning, early. I have something you need to see." He hesitated. "Is this about Vivian?" I said yes. He was quiet for 5 seconds. 7, I'll be there. He arrived at 6:55, still in yesterday's shirt, looking like he hadn't slept. I had coffee ready and my laptop set up in the living room. "Before I show you this," I said, "I need to know you're ready to see it, because once you do, you can't unknow it." He sat down heavily. "Show me." I played the footage, his car, the mirror, the spray paint. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. "That's Garrett," he said, not a question, a statement. I nodded, and 2 friends, I have their faces on other cameras. I can identify them. I showed him the second incident, the garage door. Garrett's voice on the audio. "Mom said this one complained." The treasurer put his head in his hands. "How long has this been happening?" I pulled up my timeline, at least 8 months that I can prove, probably longer. He looked at me, eyes hollow. "Why didn't you go to the police?" I had gone to the police twice. They can't do much with hooded figures and grainy footage, but this is different. Clear faces, clear audio, clear motive. This is prosecutable. He stood up, paced to the window, stared out at the lake. "Vivian doesn't know, does she, about what he's doing?" I thought about that. She knows something. The audio proves she's directing targets. Whether she knows the methods, I can't say, but she's not innocent. He turned back. "What do you want from me?" "The truth," I said. "When this goes public, people will need to hear from someone who was inside, someone who saw how she operated. I need you to be willing to tell what you know." He was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. "I abstained from voting because she threatened me, not directly, just mentioned how my landscaping was looking a little overgrown, how violations could pile up fast if someone wasn't careful. I was a coward." "You're not a coward," I said. "You're scared, there's a difference, but now you have a choice." He looked at the frozen frame on my screen, Garrett's face clearly visible, tire iron in hand. "What's your plan?" I told him. His eyes widened. "That's bold." I nodded. "It has to be. Anything less and she'll spin it." He asked if I had enough signatures. I did. 12 homeowners, more than the required 20%. "Then I'm in," he said, "whatever you need." After he left, I made another call, my attorney. I explained what I'd found and asked if the footage was admissible. He said yes, but recommended I turn it over to the police immediately to establish a chain of custody. I called the non-emergency line and requested Officer Blackwell specifically. She arrived an hour later. I showed her everything. She watched in silence, taking notes, asking for copies. "This is solid," she said. "Multiple counts of criminal mischief, conspiracy, possibly witness intimidation, depending on what else you have." "How long until charges?" I asked. She shrugged. "Depends on the district attorney's office. Could be days, could be weeks, but this won't go away." She paused at the door. "You know this is going to blow up your neighborhood, right?" I knew. That was the point. I spent the rest of the day organizing the financial evidence, the HOA's quarterly reports for the past 2 years. I'd requested them weeks ago, and Vivian had delayed, then finally sent low-resolution scans that were barely readable. But I'd enhanced them, run optical character recognition, pulled out the numbers. Community Improvement Fund, $47,000 spent, line items vague, consultant fees paid to a company called GS Consulting. I looked it up, registered 8 months ago, owner Garrett Strickland. I cross-referenced payment dates with project completion records, nothing matched. $12,000 paid to Garrett's company for landscape design consulting, but no designs existed, no contracts, no deliverables. The money had simply moved from HOA accounts to his personal business and disappeared. I flagged every transaction, created a summary spreadsheet, and added it to my evidence folder. This wasn't just harassment anymore, this was embezzlement. Thursday afternoon, I submitted the formal request for a special meeting. Subject, board member conduct and financial accountability. I attached the required signatures, cited the bylaws that mandated a 30-day response. Vivian called me 10 minutes after I sent it. "What do you think you're doing?" Her voice was tight, controlled, but with an edge I hadn't heard before. "Fear. Exercising my rights as a homeowner," I said. She breathed hard into the phone. "You're making a mistake. This community won't forgive you for what you're about to do." I almost laughed. "I'm not the one who needs forgiveness, Vivian." I hung up. Then I opened my calendar and marked the meeting date, 3 weeks from now. 21 days to prepare the presentation that would end her tenure. I got to work. The clubhouse had never been this full. 41 of the 47 households represented, people standing along the walls, folding chairs packed so tight they touched. Vivian sat at the head table with the other 2 board members, face composed but eyes sharp. She dressed for battle, dark blazer, white shirt, hair pulled back severely. The treasurer wouldn't look at her. The 3rd member stared at the table. Garrett sat in the front row, arms crossed, jaw set. I arrived 15 minutes early with Dorothy, a laptop, and a portable projector already tested twice that morning. I set up at the side of the room where everyone could see the screen. Vivian watched me plug in cables but said nothing. The air felt electric. People knew something big was coming, they just didn't know what. At 7 exactly, Vivian tapped her microphone. "This special meeting was requested by Lawson Ashford. I'll turn the floor over to him now." Her tone was neutral, but I caught the slight emphasis on requested, like this was my fault, my disruption. I stood and walked to the projector. "Thank you all for coming," I said. My voice was steady, calm. I'd rehearsed this 50 times. "I requested this meeting because I've discovered information that affects every homeowner here. I'm going to show you documentation. I'm going to let the evidence speak. Then I'm going to ask you to make a decision." I clicked to the first slide. My deed, enlarged, highlighted sections visible from the back row. This started because I refused to surrender private property that isn't under HOA jurisdiction. That refusal triggered 8 violation notices, over $4,000 in fines, and a sustained campaign of harassment. Next slide, the spreadsheet of fines with dates and amounts. None of these violations exist in our covenants. I've provided documentation proving that repeatedly. The board ignored it. Murmurs in the audience. Vivian's jaw tightened. "But this isn't just about me," I continued. Next slide, the timeline of emails. 28 in one day, all copied publicly. This is systematic intimidation designed to force compliance through exhaustion. I looked at the treasurer. He stood up slowly. I received similar treatment, he said, voice shaking slightly. When I questioned a vote, I got violation notices about my landscaping. When I asked for financial clarification, I was told the board had discretion. I abstained from voting because I was afraid. The room went silent. Vivian leaned forward. That's not. I cut her off. There's more. Next slide, the spray-painted fence, the graffiti, police report numbers. Vandalism targeting my property. Then I reviewed 6 months of security footage. I clicked, the video played. Garrett and 2 friends approaching my dock at 2 in the morning, clear faces. Then cut to them smashing the treasurer's mirror, audio not here, camera, glass breaking. The room erupted. Garrett shot to his feet. That's fake, he edited that. I didn't react, just clicked again. Second incident, garage door, audio, Mom said this one complained. Garrett's voice unmistakable. The homeowner whose garage it was stood up from the 3rd row. That was my house. I filed a report but never knew who did it. Her voice cracked. More people talking now. Vivian tried to speak, but her microphone wasn't cutting through. I raised my voice slightly. I turned this footage over to the police 4 days ago. Officer Blackwell confirmed it's being forwarded to the district attorney for criminal charges. Garrett's face went white. He looked at Vivian. She stared straight ahead, frozen. But there's something else you all need to see. Next slide, the financial summary. Community Improvement Fund, $47,000. Consultant fees to GS Consulting, $12,000 highlighted in red. GS Consulting is registered to Garrett Strickland, Incorporated 8 months ago. According to HOA records, this company was paid $12,000 for landscape design consulting. I clicked, but there are no designs, no contracts, no deliverables, no board vote approving the expense. The treasurer stood again. I never saw these payments in the budget reviews. They were categorized under general maintenance. His voice was stronger now, angry. Vivian finally found her voice. This is a coordinated attack. Lawson has been trying to undermine this board since he moved here. She stood, gripping the table edge. My son made mistakes, stupid mistakes, but I had nothing to do with that, and those consulting fees were legitimate. I clicked again. Email from Vivian to the HOA bookkeeper dated 6 months ago. Approved payment to GS Consulting, $4,500, community landscaping consultation. Vivian's signature at the bottom, no invoice attached, no scope of work. 3 more payments just like this, I said, all approved by you directly, no competitive bids, no board review, total, $12,000 to your son's company for services never rendered. The 3rd board member, silent until now, pushed back her chair and stood. I never saw these. Vivian, you told me they were routine maintenance. Her voice shook. You've been signing off on payments without board approval. Vivian's face flushed. I have discretion for expenses under $2,000 per transaction. But these were structured to look like separate small expenses, I said. 4 payments under the threshold, that's not discretion, that's circumvention. Dorothy stood from her seat. I moved to vote for the immediate removal of Vivian Strickland as HOA president for financial misconduct and breach of fiduciary duty. The 3rd board member didn't hesitate. I second. Vivian looked around wildly. You can't do this. I've served this community for 7 years. And for how much of that were you covering for your son? Someone shouted from the back. Others joined in, questions, accusations. Vivian tried to speak, but the room had turned. Dorothy called for order, all in favor of removal. Hands went up, I counted quickly, 36. Opposed, 2 hands, Garrett's and 1 other. Abstention, 3. Motion carries. The gavel came down. Vivian stood there trembling. You'll regret this. All of you, I'll sue. I'll fight this. The treasurer shook his head. With what standing? You just got removed by a legitimate vote. Officer Blackwell, who I'd asked to attend as a witness, stepped forward from where she'd been standing by the door. Mrs. Strickland, I need to inform you that the district attorney's office will likely be contacting you regarding the financial irregularities. You should consider retaining counsel. Vivian's face crumpled. She grabbed her papers, her clipboard, and walked toward the exit. Garrett followed. At the door, she turned back. This community will tear itself apart without leadership. Dorothy's voice was quiet but clear. No, it'll finally heal. They left, the door closed. For a moment, nobody moved. Then someone started clapping, slowly at first, then others joined. Not for me, for all of us. 2 weeks after the meeting, the charges came through. 4 counts of criminal mischief, 1 count of trespassing, 1 count of conspiracy to commit property damage. Garrett's face appeared in the local news, brief booking photo with a case number underneath. His lawyer negotiated a plea deal. 200 hours of community service, 2 years probation, restitution totaling $3,400 split among the victims, anger management classes, and a condition that surprised no one. He had to move out of Lakeside Estates within 60 days. The judge had been clear: you don't get to terrorize a community and keep living there. Vivian's fall came slower but landed harder. The forensic accountant traced 3 weeks of records and found $23,000 in questionable spending, payments to Garrett's company, invoices with no work attached. Not enough for criminal charges. Her lawyer claimed negligence, not intent. The district attorney let it rest. The civil case didn't. The HOA's attorney demanded restitution, and Vivian settled. $28,000 resignation, a clause barring her from the board forever. She sold her house within days and left quietly, a moving van rolling out before sunrise. No one waved goodbye. Dorothy texted, "It's over." I replied, "Now it starts." A young family moved in a few weeks later. 2 kids, a golden retriever, a father who shook my hand at the mailbox. "We heard about what you did," he said. "That's why we chose this place." Change followed fast. Dorothy won the next election. The treasurer stayed. 2 new members joined. Rules tightened, but transparency bloomed. Any expense over $500 needed dual signatures and public record. Minutes went online. A new clause barred retaliation by violation notice. The covenants were rewritten too, finally stating what should have been obvious: private marinas were beyond HOA control. Not because of me, but because law should never rely on personality. 3 owners held those rights. Now it was ink on page 12, section 4, subsection B. The neighborhood began to heal. Meetings filled again. People spoke without fear. They proposed dog parks, solar panels, small changes that felt revolutionary. Control gave way to collaboration. Slowly my life reopened. The couple next door invited me to a barbecue. We laughed like normal neighbors. Some apologized for their silence. I told them fear was logical. Courage was harder. Documentation just made it visible. 6 weeks later, I took the boat out. The lake was glass, the air still. No alerts, no letters, just water and sky and the quiet weight of earned ownership. Dorothy called. "They found more," she said. Vivian had skimmed small fees for years. $5 here, 10 there, 4,000 in total. "We'll let it go," Dorothy added. "Justice isn't always punishment." I agreed. It was prevention that mattered. That afternoon, 2 kids from the new family appeared on my dock, barefoot, fearless, the way kids trust solid ground without asking permission. Their laughter carried across the water, light and uneven like wind against sails. The boy pointed at the compass mounted near the wheel. "Does it really point north?" I told him it always did, even when the world tried to twist. He grinned, not understanding the metaphor, and that felt perfect. When they left, their laughter lingered longer than the sound of the water. It was the first echo in months that didn't feel like an accusation. That night I walked to the dock again, barefoot, coffee replaced by cold air. The moon hung high in silver, turning the lake into a sheet of glass more solid than land. I thought about the months between the first email and the last meeting. The battles weren't fought with fists, but with timestamps and the weary precision of being right. There was something absurd about it, and something sacred too. proof that truth, even bureaucratic truth, can still defend itself when someone keeps recording. I sat there tracing the moon's reflection. I thought of Vivian, not the caricature, but the woman who once believed she was protecting something worth guarding. Power warps slowly, like sunlight through glass, until no one remembers when it first began to bend. Garrett, too, young enough to still think consequences are optional. Maybe someday he'd see that what ruins people isn't defiance, but denial. When I stood, the dock creaked, familiar and forgiving. The air smelled like rain, though the forecast was clear. Maybe that was just the lake breathing after months of tension. I looked at my reflection and didn't see the man who fought the board. Just a homeowner with a boat, a coffee mug, and too many folders in a cabinet he hoped never to open again. Inside, the binder sat on the counter, spine worn, pages thick with ink and intent. I left it there. Proof doesn't need an audience. Some truths survive best in silence. Through the window, the lake caught the last flicker from the porch and went still. For the first time in a long time, I believed that stillness could last.